Overland.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And I rise to speak on the Transport Legislation Amendment Bill of 2019. And firstly, I would like to thank the Minister for Transport Infrastructure for her work and her office's work, but also the work of the departments that are involved in this bill, because I'm sure there's been a lot of work going on in the background for quite a time to get us to this point. Should also, at the same time, thank the Minister for Roads and Road Safety and TAC in the other House, and of course the Minister for Public Transport. And I noted earlier when the Minister for Public Transport gave her contribution, she made a very valid statement, which was that Labor understands that public transport is a crucial part of an equitable society. The quote might not be correct, but I think that was the gist. And I think that is exactly true. And this integration will provide efficiency in the department. It will provide a better working machine, and therefore we will have a better public transport and road system in this state. I'll give a brief example. Some of the members on the other side have pointed to their lack of understanding of what this bill will actually do for their constituency. I'll just give you a small example of small gains that make a big difference. So earlier this year, I had discussions with the Minister's office about the people leaving Glen Waverley Station at peak hour. And I was very pleased to see that earlier in the year, the Metro upgraded the Mikey touch-on, touch-off readers at Glen Waverley Station to be the new faster touch-on system. And that's great, and it did have an impact, which was good to see. But we still were talking, and then in June the Minister came to Glen Waverley Station with Metro, and we sort of discussed a few more options. Now, last week Metro conducted a trial to see if there's any other ways that we could improve getting off the station, and this involved opening the gates. Now, those touch-on, touch-off readers with the process of gates, it looked very promising. I don't want to preempt the results of the trial, of course, but it shows to me that little changes can make a big difference when you add them all up. So I'd like to thank the Minister for that work. So I'd also like to mention that the main purpose of this bill is to, indeed, as I've alluded to complete the consolidation of the Public Transport Department Authority and Vic Roads and the Transport of Victoria. And this merging of departments will create a greater focus on people and a simpler operating model, reducing duplication and enabling more efficient operations. And I think we should, I'd like to thank the member for Box Hill, who's still here. His contribution was very instructional, and I actually wish that the member for Sandringham, who again was confused about some of the or didn't know, sorry, I shouldn't say confused, he didn't know what benefits his constituents would get. And I think some of the members' descriptions about his involvement in departments would mainly answer those questions for Minister Sandringham. So, well, I think he should. It was very instructional. So this bill gives the power to the Secretary to cancel a vehicle's registration if ad standards, and which ad standards is the advertising industry for complaints resolution. And if ad standards determine that a vehicle breaches those standards of code of ethics, then they can then ban the vehicle, and that goes to what many members have been talking about in regard to the wicked campers, which I will come back to, because that is a very good change for our state. The bill also completes the implementation of the National Heavy Vehicle Regulation by transferring compliance capabilities to the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator. Now, just on the vans, about 3 or 4 years ago, my family went down to the member for Bass's area. We went and stayed at Phillip Island for a week during summer. It was a fantastic holiday. And we were walking from our from our little house that we'd rented, walking along the road, and I saw this van. And it's the first time I had seen one of these things. So picture a family walking along towards the beach. I've got my 8-year-old daughter, my 5-year-old son, and we're probably pushing the pram with Sammy too. And there is this van sitting there with these slogans that none of my children should have to read. And I'm glad the member for Caulfield's here in the room, because earlier today in his member statement he talked about anti-Semitic sentiments which are completely intolerable. And I completely agree with that. In fact, in Mount Waverley earlier this year there was a play, Diary of Anne Frank, and some idiot put some anti-Semitic graffiti on that. And it was completely disappointing to see that sort of thing happens anywhere near our electorate. It's not the same, but it's similar in the way that people are subjected to intolerable comments in a public way. And I think banning that is completely the right thing to do. So the late Fiona Richardson said in 2016, the member for Northcote at the time, if we can do something to rid our roads of wicked campers, take down advertising that blurs the line between marketing and misogyny, and turn the tables on the trolls, we will do it. Well, I think Fiona was spot on. I'd like to add that I not only blurring those lines, I think that those vans are foul, they are unnecessary, and anyone who thinks it funny can go in the privacy of their own home and say whatever they like to themselves. It doesn't mean my children have to read it. So freedom of speech is all fine, but there's accountability to freedom of speech. We must be responsible for what we as a society say is okay. And in this, we are saying it's not okay. And for that alone, this bill is worth passing. Getting on to other aspects of the bill in regard to the consolidation. Now, I was very happy to hear the member for Roa early talk about the suburban rail loop. It's another example of the big build, and this is the big build, and the member for Eltham also talked about the big build, quoting the member for Euroa's focus on the capital letters. And I agree with the member of Eltham that we could put the whole words in capital letters. And the best thing is that, apart from the fact that I'll, with all due respect to the member of Euroa, I'll never get that 30 minutes back, but she led off with a lot of words, very little substance. But when you look at 5 years of the Andrews Labor government in power, and you look at the big build in process, you can pretty well sit there in any electorate and point and say, Labor built that, Labor built that, Labor built that. Whereas the little 4 year before that, not so much. So I think that the SRL is a great example of government looking around to see what needs to be done for the future and for now. And I was ecstatic to see outside my office, and the member of Sandringham seemed to think that the SRL could be built today and we don't need to plan it. We're just going to get in and it's going to magically appear. He might have borrowed the member for Paran's pink unicorn or something. I don't know what's going on there. But planning is happening. And the geotech work that is happening in Glen Waverley right now will determine where those stations are. And if I can make the member for Sandringham feel a little more comfortable, once we know exactly where to put them, once the planning is done properly, then it will continue and it will work and we will see it. And I know the people in my district in Mount Waverley are excited. They are ecstatic. I almost joined the two words together. And they are ecstatic to see this movement. They're seeing the work going on, and then we'll start working on the next phase. And in, I don't know, what are we looking at, 8 years? We'll hopefully around that time we will have digging, we'll have stations, we'll have a loop in 20, 30 years. As the Premier said, we won't finish it, but it will get done. And many things that this government is doing and continues to do over and over again I won't get everything in this bill because there's too much of it, but it is crucial, and I commend the bill to the House.